I'm reading this one as an ebook on my phone. You can check out ebooks using Sunflower eLibrary on our library website. Chapter 1. Monday, July 23, 2018. A forest in Northern California around 8 a.m. Josh stared in horror at the blood-red glow rising up behind him. A massive wildfire was raging through the forest, a wall of flames devouring everything in its path. Josh and his cousin Holly were in a race for their lives. "Josh," Holly shouted, grabbing his hand, "this way." As they took off along the forest path, the hot wind gusted hard. Suddenly, the air was filled with sparks and glowing embers and chunks of flaming wood. Josh felt them landing on his bare arms and legs, sizzling against his skin, searing his scalp. He tried to brush them away, but they were all over him, biting into his skin like the white-hot teeth of a flesh-eating monster. He and Holly ran faster, but the wall of flames was closing in from behind. All around them, the burning embers were setting fires wherever they landed. On treetops, whoosh. On branches, whoosh. On the forest floor, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With every gust of wind, more embers swirled. Flames shot higher and higher into the sky. A nightmare of sounds crashed against Josh's ears. The fire's roar, the moaning wind, the cracking and snapping of the trees. It was as though the air itself was shrieking in agony. Josh glanced around, struggling to breathe in the thickening smoke. Just minutes before, the forest had been peaceful and green. Now it was a terrifying maze of fire. How could everything change so fast? And then, boom! A burning pine tree in front of them exploded. Shards of splintered wood sprayed out. Holly tried to pull Josh sideways, but Josh stumbled. When he looked up, there was a flaming branch speeding through the air. It was headed straight for his skull. Wildfires are pretty serious. This book was about the fires in 2018. There were even more fires just last year. Let's learn some more about them. One of the best ways to make sure you are prepared for something dangerous or scary is to learn as much as you can. This is National Geographic's Extreme Wildfire by Mark Thiessen and Glen Phelan. This is a pretty cool one. A recipe for fire. Being in the middle of a wildfire showed me how dangerous a force it can be. The smoke and flames can kill. Fire can damage and destroy houses as well as wildlife habitat. In addition, it can strip away the vegetation that holds everything in place, increasing erosion or the wearing away of soil and bits of rock. That's what erosion is. Rain can easily wash these loose materials down bare hillsides and into streams where the eroded soil can pollute and clog community water supplies. The fire triangle. Heat, fuel, and oxygen are needed to create fire. These three ingredients make up the three sides of the fire triangle. Looking at this model makes it easier to understand fire. If you remove any of the sides of a triangle, the triangle cannot exist. If you remove any one of the ingredients of a fire, the fire cannot exist. So the first part is oxygen. Air must be at least 16% oxygen to support a fire. The air around us is about 21% oxygen, more than enough to support a fire. And the second part is heat. A material must reach its ignition temperature, usually hundreds of degrees, to start burning. The ignition temperature for wax is about 390 degrees Fahrenheit. For dry pine wood, it's 800 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a lot of heat. And the third part is fuel. Fuel is anything that will burn. In a fire, heat causes the fuel, such as paper or wood, to release hot gas. The gas ignites and burns just above the solid fuel surface, producing the flames that we call fire. This This is the diagram. Extinguish a candle flame. To extinguish any fire, you have to take away at least one side of the fire triangle. Here are 3 ways to do that with a lighted candle. Take away oxygen. Cut off the oxygen supply by covering the candle. You saw this with the glass jar. The burning candle quickly uses up the limited oxygen and goes out. Take away heat. When you blow out a candle, you take away heat. The moving air cools the flame enough to make it go out. Take away fuel. You can use heat-resistant gloves or tongs to squash the wick. This prevents the wax from moving up the wick and feeding the fire. The flame goes out. This is a list of different ways of how people can start wildfires. Oh, first I'm going to read you this a little bit. Most of the initial heat comes from people. In fact, people start about 9 out of 10 wildfires. Here are a few ways that carelessness leads to the fiery destruction of field and forest. Someone discards a match or cigarette that isn't completely put out. Campers leave a campfire smoldering, then a breeze scatters hot bits of wood to nearby fuels. Cinders from exploded fireworks remain red hot as they drift to the ground. Someone starts a small fire to burn yard waste, then the fire gets out of hand when a wind comes up. A discarded piece of glass focuses enough sunlight to heat up and ignite a clump of dry grass. Expert tips for fighting fires. Fighting wildfires. No matter how big or how small a wildfire is, fighting it requires 3 basic steps. 1. Size up the fire. The incident commander sizes up the fire, the incident, by gathering all the information about it. Where is it? How big is it? How is it moving? What's the topography like? What fuels are involved? What's the weather forecast? 2. Develop a plan. After sizing up the fire, the IC and other members of the management team develop an incident action plan. What kinds of crews are needed? How many? Where do they dig line? Where are the escape routes and safety zones? Which risks are worth taking and which are not? There's a lot to decide. 3. Implement the plan and reassess. Now the IC puts the plan into action. All the while, he or she is in contact with the crew leaders and other supervisors. The management team keeps track of the firefighters' progress and how well the plan is working. If the fire changes strength or direction, other plans are in place to reduce risk for those on the front lines. It's a pretty important job. A hotshot crew consists of 20 firefighters, though they typically break up into squads of 10. Then they can work on different parts of the fire at the same time. Also, one squad can work while the other one rests. This way, they can battle the blaze during the night when the cooler temperatures and higher humidity make the fire easier to control. Day or night, one crew member always stands lookout to warn others if the fire suddenly changes strength or direction. This is a picture of some of the hotshot workers. They're the people on the front lines. Pretty scary. Perhaps the most elite crews are the hotshots. The name says it all. Hotshots often are in the hottest, most dangerous part of the fire, closest to the flames. If a fire is tough to reach and looks difficult to put out, the hotshots go in. They're not reckless daredevils, though. Hotshots are highly trained and in tip-top physical condition. They know fire, how it acts, how to fight it, and how to stay safe from it. Better than anyone. Parts of a wildfire. Every wildfire spreads outward from where it starts, mostly driven in the direction of the wind. As it moves, it develops a pattern with recognizable parts. The point of origin. This is where the fire starts. It spreads outward from here. Perimeter. This is the edge of the fire. The perimeter changes as the fire moves. Head. The fire spreads fastest at its head and shows the direction the fire is moving. The head usually has the tallest flames. Heel. The heel is at the part of the fire that is opposite the head. Flames burn low and the fire spreads slowly because it is moving against the wind or downslope. Flanks. This is the part of the perimeter parallel to the direction of the fire. Think of the flanks as the sides of the fire. Fingers. The topography or a localized wind gust that might cause narrow extensions or fingers to grow from the fire's main body. Spots. Embers start spot fires outside the main fire's perimeter. Here's a picture of all of this. It looks pretty cool. Here, it's, over here. That's also a really cool picture. There are a lot of good pictures in this one. You should check it out. Right, here are some other gear and gadgets, kind of like the fire shelters that are in the book. Do you remember them talking about them? A properly equipped wildland firefighter wears and carries this gear. Flame-resistant clothing, like the yellow shirts and green pants of U.S. Forest Service firefighters. Boots of high quality, usually leather. Soles should be stitched on, not glued. The glue melts in the heat of a fire. Hard hat. Leather gloves, safety goggles, gas mask, fire shelter, canteens of water, and fusees. Fuses? Oh no, it's spelled F-U-S-E-E-S. They are small flares used to start burnout fires. That's pretty cool. All right, this is about air attack. The most important and effective resources for putting out wildfires are the firefighters on the ground, but often this ground attack needs some help from the air. Air attack provides speed, access, information, and other resources that help put out the flames. Smoke jumpers. What do you get when you combine skydiving with firefighting? You get smoke jumping. Sometimes smoke jumpers catch a ride on a helicopter. Usually, however, they get to fires by parachuting from an airplane. It sure makes for a dramatic entrance, but they don't do it for the drama. Planes and parachutes may simply be the fastest way to get firefighters to the scene. This is especially true in the most remote of areas, such as the vast forests that carpet mountainous regions in the United States, Canada, and Russia. The air show. During a fire, aircraft do more than carry firefighters and equipment. Planes called air tankers dump water and other liquids on a fire to help snuff it out. These planes sometimes work in pairs, with one flying a few minutes behind the other. Life returns to the forest. Fire changes an ecosystem. However, not all of the changes may be what you'd expect. This is one of the subjects that was talked about in the book. Do you remember him thinking about how things come back after the fire when he's looking out the window of the car? Imagine a burned out forest. A year ago, this ecosystem was lush and green, rich with life. Then a fire roared through. Afterward, charred trees stood like black pipes. The branches that remained stretched out like crooked fingers. Ash blanketed the forest floor. In this landscape of black and gray, it looked like nothing would ever grow here again. But looks can be deceiving. Seeds and roots buried in the soil were unharmed by the fire. More seeds blew in on the wind and settled to the ground. Within 2 weeks, light green blades of grass poked through the ash. Tiny stems popped up and uncurled the first delicate leaves of new pine trees. Birch stems shot up from the bases of burned trunks. Shrubs and wildflowers sprouted next to scorched fallen timber. Every day brought growth and the sight of something new. Fireweed and geraniums opened their pinkish-purple flowers. Other flowers followed. Soon the forest floor burst into a carpet of color. Plants attracted animals. Insects crawled out of the ground to feed on fresh leaves and the pollen of flowers. Mice left their underground burrows to nibble on sprouts and seeds, but they had to watch out for the hungry hawks perched on the burned branches. Other birds returned to feed on the insects. Large animals like deer and elk came back to graze on fresh grass, shoots, and leaves. By next year, the forest will have changed even more. Saplings of aspen, birch, and pine will be chest high. Huckleberry and other berry bushes will have grown in the sun-drenched clearings created by the fire, and these will have brought the bears. Bears love berries, and they know that the best places to find these sweet treats are in areas that recently burned. Over the next few years, dozens more plants and animals will return to the forest. Again, it will be lush and green, full of life. The fire won't have destroyed it at all. In fact, fire is a helpful and necessary part of this forest ecosystem. Here are some other benefits of wildfire. Are you surprised that fire is one of nature's best recyclers? Here are some more answers to the question, what's good about wildfire? Frequent fires that burn close to the ground reduce the amount of brush, logs, and fallen branches and leaves on the forest floor without harming larger, healthy trees. This keeps fuel from building up, which helps prevent larger, more destructive fires. Fire opens a dense forest so that more sunlight reaches the forest floor. This allows the growth of a variety of plants that provide food and shelter for many kinds of animals. Small fires create edges in an ecosystem. An edge is a border between two areas that have different kinds of plant life, such as a meadow and a forest, or different ages of plants, such as a young forest and an old-growth forest. Edges provide a lot of different resources and habitats for wildlife. Ashes from a fire act as fertilizer, which nourishes the soil and helps plants grow. Fire removes pests and diseased plants from an ecosystem. Fire removes invasive plants. These are plants that do not usually grow in an area and that compete with native plants for nutrients and space. In grasslands, fire removes woody plants such as shrubs and trees that compete with the native grasses and wildflowers. Oh my goodness. The grasses and wildflowers burn too, but they quickly grow back healthier than ever. Wow, my tongue is getting super tied. Cool stuff. All right, but I want to show you a couple pictures in this book that are from the California wildfires. It's also pretty serious. Don't forget that. And one more picture. This one's smaller. This is a guy taking his stuff, trying to save it from the house. This book has a lot of cool facts and safety tips. I recommend checking it out. The next video is the craft. I chose a paracord bracelet. If you don't want to make the bracelet, that's fine, but don't forget to check out the PDFs I included in the video descriptions. There are more crafts and science experiments included there. I have some pretty fun stuff in them.